You open your eyes and the first thing you feel is cold. Not the cold of a bedroom in winter, the cold of open air on skin with nothing between you and the sky. There is no roof. There is no alarm. There is no version of today that someone else has planned for you. You are awake in the Stone Age. And the clock has already started. Most people assume the danger here is obvious. A predator in the dark. A spear that misses. A winter that arrives too early. And those things were real. But that is not what would kill you. What would kill you is something quieter and far more humbling. You would die from a lack of skill you never knew you needed. So let's be honest about what you are actually working with. Your body right now in the modern world has spent its whole life in a heated, padded, predictable environment. You can read, you can drive, you can find food in a building with bright lights. None of that helps you here. Here, every single thing that keeps you alive has to be made by your own hands, with knowledge stored in your own head on a deadline set by the sun. And the people around you, the ones born into this world, are not primitive. That is the first lie you have to unlearn. They are experts. They are some of the most capable humans who have ever lived. You are the one who is out of your depth. Consider how your ancestors got food. Not all of it came from a lucky throw. Anthropologists, the scientists who study human cultures, have documented something called persistence hunting, where a human chases an animal not by being faster but by refusing to stop. In 2004, two researchers, Dennis Bramble and Daniel Lieberman, published a study in the journal Nature, arguing that the human body was literally shaped by this. Your long legs, your springy Achilles tendon, the cord at the back of your ankle that stores and releases energy with every stride, the fact that you sweat across your whole body instead of panting. These are not random. They are the equipment of an endurance predator. A deer can outrun you for a minute. It cannot outsweat you for an afternoon. So a Stone Age hunter would jog after it for hours under the heat, tracking every print and broken blade of grass until the animal overheated and simply collapsed. That is the body you are sitting in right now. It was built for this. The problem is you have never used it this way, and you do not know how to read the tracks. Now picture the alternative. Hunting up close. This is where the second lie falls apart. The one that says ancient life was a slow, gentle existence. In 1995, two researchers named Thomas Berger and Berger Trinkaus examined the skeletons of Neanderthals, the close human relatives who lived across Ice Age Europe, and looked at their injuries. The patterns stunned them. The breaks and fractures were concentrated in the head and neck and upper body, and the closest modern match they could find for that exact injury pattern was rodeo riders. People who get thrown by large, panicking animals at close range. Think about what that means. To eat these humans were wrestling enormous prey from arm's length, again and again, and walking away with the kind of trauma we now associate with a man being bucked off a bull. They did this so often that it scarred their bones. And they survived it, healed, and went out and did it again. Could you? So let's reconstruct a single day, your day, the one you would not survive. You wake cold because you do not know how to build and bank a fire that lasts the night. The others do. They learned it as small children, the way you learn to use a screen. Making fire is not striking a match. It is friction and timing. And dry tinder you have to recognize and gather in advance. And a technique in your wrist that takes weeks to learn, and you have minutes. By the time you give up, your hands are raw and the morning is half gone. You are thirsty. There is water nearby, but you do not know which water is safe, and there is no way to boil it without the fire you could not make. You do not know which plants near the bank are food and which will quietly poison you over the next 2 days. The grandmother of the group could tell you in a glance. She holds a library of survival in her memory that took 60 years to fill. You have none of it. And here is a detail that makes it worse. You are picturing survival as one heroic hunt. It almost never was. When the anthropologist Richard Lee lived among the Jew/Hoansi people of the Kalahari in the 1960s and actually measured where their calories came from, he found that the steady, reliable food was not meat at all. It was gathered. Nuts, roots, berries, tubers, collected day after day by people who knew exactly which plant grew where, in which season, and how deep to dig. That quiet, patient knowledge fed the camp far more dependably than any chase. And it is knowledge you do not have. You would walk past your own dinner 100 times and never recognize it. You are hungry, so you watch the hunters leave. You cannot keep their pace. You cannot read the ground. You cannot throw with the precision that takes a lifetime of practice. The tools they carry, you could not make. A good stone blade is not picked up off the ground. It is knapped, struck at exact angles to flake the edge sharp, and a single mistake shatters hours of work. Archaeologists who have spent years learning to do this still produce clumsy copies. You would not make one usable tool by sundown, and here is the part that hurts the most. None of this is because the people around you are stronger or smarter than you. They are not a different species of human. Their brains are your brain. If you took a newborn from that camp and raised it in the modern world, it would grow up to drive a car and use a phone exactly like you. The gap between you and them is not biology. It is knowledge. Thousands of small, hard-won skills passed down body to body that you were simply never given. So, would you really be helpless? Mostly, yes. But notice what is still true. That endurance body Lieberman described is still your body. That capacity to learn, to copy a skill from someone more capable and slowly make it your own, is the single trait that built every campfire in human history. You are not weak because you lack the hardware. You are unprepared because you lack the training. And training is the one thing humans are better at than any animal alive. There is a strange comfort in this. We tend to imagine ancient people as scraping by, barely surviving, lives that were short and miserable. But the data pushes back. Researchers Michael Gurven and Kaplan, in a careful 2007 review of hunter-gatherer lifespans, found that while many infants died young, dragging the average down, a person who survived childhood often lived into their 60s and 70s. These were not desperate, fleeting lives. They were full ones, lived by people who knew their world completely. Far more completely than you know yours. We even have a face to put on this. In 1991, hikers in the Alps found a body frozen in the ice. A man we now call Ötzi, who died more than 5,000 years ago. His tools, his clothing, the food still in his stomach, all of it showed a person who was equipped, prepared, deeply skilled at staying alive in a brutal landscape. He had old injuries that had healed and a final one that did not. He was not a savage. He was a survivor, right up until the day he wasn't. That is the real lesson of imagining yourself dropped into the Stone Age. It is not that those people were beneath you. It is that you have quietly inherited their bodies and lost their skills. You carry the engine of an endurance hunter and use it to walk to a parked car. You hold a brain shaped by 100,000 years of learning by hand, and you use it to remember passwords. The softness you would feel out there is not weakness. It is the price of a world that finally got safe enough to make survival skills optional. Your ancestors paid in blood and bone so that you would never have to know how to knap a blade or run a deer to its knees. The fact that you wouldn't last a day is not their failure, it is their gift. So tonight, when you lie down somewhere warm, with a roof above you and water a step away and tomorrow already half planned by someone else, remember what that comfort cost. and how recently it arrived. And then imagine, just for a moment, opening your eyes to nothing but cold air and an open sky, and the very first thing you feel